What's up, guys? Today's video I'm gonna do initial impressions video on these two knives that you see here. These are Kershaw produced, Emerson designed folding knives, and for those of you who aren't really into the whole knife world, Emerson is basically a company started by a guy, Ernest Emerson, who became really famous for his specific design of blade that he calls the wave, which is this feature right here. And what this feature does is that when you have the knife sitting in your pocket, this nub here is pointing in towards the seam of your pocket, and as you go to draw out the blade, this will catch against the edge of the pocket and opening the blade as you pull the knife out of your pocket. So he basically markets his knives very much as tactical knives. And obviously for this reason, with the wave functionality and how quick it is to get the blade open when you're withdrawing the folder out of your pocket, it's almost like a one-step instead of a two-step where you have to pull the knife out and then open the blade. It makes for very fast deployment, which is great in a tactical situation. The thing with his knives are that I believe they're like semi-production, semi-custom made. Like he hand grinds and stuff. I'm not really sure of how his knives are produced now. I was never a big fan of Emerson knives. I like the wave functionality, don't get me wrong. I wasn't a huge fan of their fit and finish, as well as the designs. I didn't like super overly tactical knives. I do like tactical folders, but not to a certain extent. Like, something like this is a little too excessive for me, or knives like coming out of the zero tolerance line, not really my style. I prefer more sleek, slimline knives that can be used in a tactical role. Emerson knives are also very expensive. They range from like $150 and up. I think the average price is like maybe $100. Actually, I think the average price is around like $200, $220. The thing is, he uses pretty good steel. I think he still uses 154 CM, and I also believe that he uses titanium liners. These are all steel lined, which makes for much heavier knives. This top one right here is the 4K. I think it's the CQC line, the CQC-4k, and this is the 6K. There are a few other models in this Kershaw production run, and they vary. They're actually, a few of them are quite similar. The big thing is that like the 6K is this drop point style or clip point style blade, and I think like the 7K or one of the other ones is the same exact handle, same blade length. It's just a tanto blade instead of this drop point. So as you can see here, I don't think you have a choice in terms of the handle and blade colorations between these specific numbered models. The 4Ks are all this like tan coyote brown G10 handle with the black blade, and also black finished frame lock. The 6K is this black G10 with like a hybrid between satin and stonewash on this blade, and a normal bead blast liner. So I mean, like I said, I've always liked the wave feature. I have used the wave feature in terms of like the Spyderco wave. I have a Wave Delica here. The big thing about the Wave Delica is that you can see here, they have an agreement with Emerson to use this wave functionality, but the wave design is slightly different. You can see the Emerson wave is actually a lot smaller. The hook isn't as pronounced. This hook is a little too pronounced for me, and what I find is that when I'm trying to draw the knife out of my pocket, it will snag on the seam sometimes because of how deep this hook is, versus with the Emerson wave, because it's not so pronounced, it doesn't snag nearly as much, and it's much quicker out of the pocket because of it. These, I believe the MSRP is around $50. I got these for $30, like low $30. Actually, I have the boxes right here. This is the packaging it came with. Pretty nice box. The Emerson skull, designed by Emerson, built by Kershaw. This is the 6K box, and it was $34.50 from Newgrams. And the 4K has a slightly smaller box, which is $33.97, around the same price. But like I said, MSRP is for like $50, $55. These just recently came out. Retailers got them very recently, within the past week, I think. And there were a few sellers online that were selling at a kind of higher price than what I expected street price to be. So I didn't buy them yet. They were selling them for like high 40s. And I knew the street price would be around $30 for these, so I waited out a little bit. And once I saw that Newgram's had a few of the models in stock, specifically the models that I wanted, I went ahead and just bought them. I would want to also probably get the 1K. I think that's a pretty nice small folder, but considering how heavy these are, I'm not sure if I would actually get it, just because I thought that would make a good EDC blade, but it's a little, these knives are kind of heavy. This one, the 6K, I think is around, when I put on my scale, it was like 5.1 ounces, and this is 4.1 ounces, which is really heavy, especially, you know, when you consider that, you know, my everyday carry, like one of my favorites is like, you know, a Spyderco Delica 4, and this thing is like just over 2 ounces, so these knives are actually like double in weight. And in terms of the blade length, actually I already have a, well, you know, in terms of the blade length, you know, both of these have 3.25-inch blades, and the Spyderco Delica has, like, I think just under a 3-inch blade, like 2.97. So I'm not getting that much more blade length, but I'm getting a lot more weight. And it's not like, the, you know, for an EDC folder, I don't need a super strong locker, you know, by any means. You know, these locks, they are steel lined. Like, obviously they're steel frame locks, so there's not much you can really do about this side. I think 2 of the models that Kershaw is making are actually liner locks, so those may be a little lighter because the lock bar probably won't be as thick as this frame lock. But the other thing is that while there is like a G10 scale on top, there is a steel liner on this side, and this steel liner is not drilled out whatsoever. It's just, and it's also quite thick, you know, don't get me wrong, like you can have a thin steel liner that's not drilled out and it won't be as heavy, you know, but obviously, unlike with like the Delica 4, which has milled out liners, which you're not going to be able to see. Yeah, well, but you know, in the steel, you know, it's FRN handles with steel liners inset, and then, you know, there are like 4 large holes drilled out into the steel, you know, just to help lighten it up a little bit, you know, take an ounce or so off the overall weight of the knife. Which, I mean, you know, if you take this knife at 4 ounces and you cut an ounce off, or, you know, even this one at 5 ounces and you cut an ounce off, that's a significant change, you know, 20 to 25% change in the overall weight. But, you know, that would add to production costs, so for the money, I'm not going to really complain. These blades are made out of a 8CR13 MOV, not the 154 CM that Emerson uses, obviously. I have used 8CR13 MOV before in the past in the Spyderco Bird line, and it's an okay steel. You know, a lot of people like to compare it to AOS 8. I guess it really depends on the heat treat you're getting on it. I kind of feel that AUS 8 gets a slightly finer edge than 8CR13 MOV, but I could be wrong. I mean, like I said, you know, I haven't really had a lot of knives in this steel to really make a fair comparison, you know, versus blade steels like VG10, S30V, AUS 8. I've had more experience with. But it's okay, it sharpens up relatively easily, it doesn't hold the edge super long, but I mean, in all honesty, I don't really see myself carrying these 2 knives as just EDC knives. Maybe the 4K, I think it's a good size as an EDC knife, even though it is a little bit on the heavier side. This, you know, you get a much better grip in the 6K, obviously, with this huge finger cutout, and it's really comfortable in hand, but it's a little too much for me for an everyday carry knife. So this will just purely be a tactical knife. And when it comes to knives that you place in a tactical roll, they don't have to stay super sharp. They don't have to be super steels. You know, in general, if you're going to carry a tactical knife, you're probably not going to want to use it, you know, especially for self-defense. You're not going to want to use it as your primary knife. You want to keep the edge as sharp as possible. And then past one encounter, you'll get a chance to sharpen your knife or whatever happens, you know. Versus something like, you know, an everyday carry knife where I'm going to be constantly cutting things, I may want a slightly better steel that will hold an edge longer, just so I don't have to resharpen my knives as often. The lockup on these is pretty good, nice and solid. The 6K pivot, it feels a little sticky, it feels a little tight. I don't know, I haven't tried playing around with the pivot screw yet. I literally just got home and I turned on the camera after I got these out of the box. It is a little stiff. You can see here it's taking a little bit of effort to open and close the knife. When you wave it, it's okay. It does stick up a little bit. You got to kind of pull it out of the pocket with a little bit more force. and it's not something that I can like flick out really easily. You know, I mean, to be honest though, I don't really think that the Emerson thumb disc is great for flicking out knives to begin with, but you know, whatever. It's nice always to have like a second option of opening this blade and not having to use the wave feature if you're just using it to cut something for an everyday knife and not like a quick deployment self-defense situation. The 4K, much smoother. Also, no blade play at all, up or down or left side to side. You know, blade centering is good, and this comes out quite fast. It's actually quite smooth. I'm not really sure why. There's such a difference in the smoothness of the pivots, but this obviously flicks out a lot easier. So yeah, first impressions. I think for like the $35 range, I think they're worth it. Especially if you don't have a wave knife and you've always wanted to try an Emerson, but just didn't want to pay the price. Then I say definitely go for it. I mean, the fit and finish on these is really nice. You know, Kershaw is known for very high standards for fit and finish, even on their lesser expensive knives that are like in the $20 range and whatnot. The blades themselves, relatively sharp. They can slice through paper pretty easily, kind of scrape hair a little bit. I'm probably going to polish up the edges on these. You know, I kind of prefer my knives to be razor sharp. That's just a habit I picked up over the years. So I'm going to have to work on these edges a little bit. Oh, and actually one important thing to note is that one of the reasons why I actually like these over the standard Emersons is that Ernie really likes to use chisel grinds, which I am not a fan of. As you can see here, at least on these two models, it has a traditional V grind. On what I believe is the 4K has a hollow grind blade, and this also, yeah, the 6K also has a hollow grind blade. Midway hollow grind actually, but both of these have V grinds on them, which I prefer. I think there are two models in this Kershaw line that have chisel grinds, so you know, if you're not a fan of chisel grinds, just be sure to check which models you're gonna get, so you don't accidentally get one that's chisel ground, because to take a chisel grind knife and turn it into a V grind, kind of a pain in the ass. And you're going to have a really thin edge if you keep the angle on both sides the same. So you're going to either have to grind away a lot of material or, you know, have a really thin edge, which will be really kind of weak and brittle and won't really hold that well. So just to keep that in mind. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. I'm probably not going to really get into the habit of making a lot of knife videos. You know, knives are a big passion of mine. It's one of the first things that I really got into and started collecting a lot of. I am a big knife guy, even though I don't really keep up with a lot of the current trends now, as I will do with some of my newer hobbies, like my fountain pen hobby, you know. But I do have a pretty decent selection of knives, and I am relatively knowledgeable about them. I just, you know, there are already a lot of knife reviews on YouTube, so I don't really see the point in making videos on, you know, say like the Spyderco Delica 4 in full flat grind. There are like hundreds of, if not thousands of videos on this knife already. It's a great knife, yeah. People already know it though. There's no real point in me making a video. This is still relatively new, at least, and you know, it gives a chance for people to kind of see and, you know, definitely at least compare the size between these new knives versus something that you can kind of potentially use as a benchmark. So yeah, don't really expect a lot of knife videos from me. Sorry, it just takes up a lot of time. I'm not really, you know, I don't really have any super special custom knives or any knives that there aren't already a ton of videos on, so I'm not going to really bother put the effort and waste my time on it. And plus, people already complain about how long my videos are, which is kind of why I put this segment towards the end of this video, just so people can already get whatever information they want from these, and I can be a little more personal about my videos on this channel. But you know, whatever. I'm rambling on now. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.